Today, we're diving into something pretty wild, a new way of thinking about how our minds work. We're going to move past the old brain as a computer idea and into something that feels a lot more dynamic. We're talking physics, energy fields, and maybe even a single beautiful equation that brings it all together. So think about it for a second. We're always told that our thoughts are just neurons firing, a big, complicated cascade of signals. But what if that's not the whole picture? What if there's a real shape to our thoughts, a flow? What if our consciousness exists inside a vibrant, humming field of energy? That's the big question, and the answer is going to take us to some very cool places. All right, so the framework we're exploring is called the Brain Kinematics Model, or BKM, and it suggests a pretty huge shift in perspective. Instead of seeing the brain as a bunch of biological wires, it asks us to imagine it as a continuous, dynamic energy field. To really get this, we have to wrap our heads around something called strain fields. The BKM says our brain activity isn't just one thing. It's a whole continuum of forces working together. You've got the electrochemical firing of neurons, sure, but also the electromagnetic fields that they create, and even the tiny little physical pressures inside the brain tissue itself. It's all of these layers, interacting, that create what we actually experience as a thought. Okay, so if the mind is a strain field, how does it actually work? Well, the model breaks it all down into two fundamental opposing forces. And these two components work together to create everything, from our deepest dreams to our most logical arguments. These two core flows are called vertical strain and horizontal strain. So vertical strain, or SV, is all about what's happening locally. It's about stability, pulling up memories. You can think of it as the state of just being. And then you've got horizontal strain, H, which is the complete opposite. It's the long-range flow of ideas across the brain, the thing that lets us reason and think in sequence. This is the state of movement. Let's zoom in on that vertical strain. Picture the columns in your brain's cortex almost like little skyscrapers of activity. Swim is the energy moving up and down these columns, grabbing memories, integrating information. It's the thing that gives you a stable sense of who you are and lets you focus. You could call it the anchor of your consciousness. And then you've got its partner, horizontal strain. This is the current that flows across the brain, connecting all those different regions. This is your stream of consciousness, really. It's that chain of if this, then that lets you move from one idea to the next. It's the river of thought. So we have these two perpendicular forces, right? The vertical stability of being and the horizontal flow of movement. But how in the world do they combine to make a single unified consciousness? This is where things get really, really interesting, because the model borrows a concept from physics that's just brilliant. I mean, this is the core puzzle, isn't it? If one force is going up and down and the other is going side to side, shouldn't they just get in each other's way? How do they weave themselves together into the incredible experience of our inner world? The answer is hiding in a little piece of math you probably learned about in school, but I bet you never thought of it like this. It's the imaginary unit, I. And first things first, forget the name imaginary. In physics and engineering, I is a rotator. It's the mathematical operator that perfectly describes what happens when two forces that are at right angles to each other interact. Multiplying by I is literally what rotates one into the other. It's the magic gear that connects the vertical and horizontal parts of our mind. And hey, if this feels a bit strange, you're in good company. This idea has been at the very heart of physics for 100 years. Even Erwin Schrödinger, one of the founders of quantum mechanics, wasn't easy with it at first. That just goes to show how deep and fundamental this concept of I really is when it comes to describing reality. Now, we have to be super clear about this next point. This is a structural analogy. This is not a quantum brain theory. The BKM isn't saying your brain is a quantum computer. It's just saying that the math that describes quantum systems works here too, because the underlying dynamics are the same. You have two perpendicular parts that are creating one unified rotating flow. So, with all these pieces finally on the table, we've got our vertical flow, our horizontal flow, and the I factor that connects them. We can now build the master equation for this entire model. Before we look at the equation itself, let's think about the ingredients. I mean, what would an equation for thought even need? Well, it needs to account for a few things, right? Propagation, how thoughts spread. Residual strain, that mental fatigue that builds up. Inputs, the sights, sounds, and feelings that kick off a thought. And finally, dissipation, how the mind calms down and resets itself, like when we sleep. And here it is, the complex strain field equation, or CSFE. You can see it looks a lot like the famous Schrödinger equation, and it mathematically describes how those vertical and horizontal strain fields evolve together over time. And right there in the middle is our I factor, doing its job, creating the coupling that makes the whole system work like a single conscious mind. Okay, so we've got a model and an equation, but so what? What can it actually do? Well, this is where the real power of this idea comes out. It can actually explain different states of consciousness, just by tweaking the variables. Just think about 3 states we all experience: being awake, dreaming, and feeling some intense emotion. When we're awake, the vertical and horizontal parts are strongly linked, which gives us coherent thoughts. But in dreams, that vertical anchor gets weak, and the horizontal flow just goes wild. And when we feel a strong emotion, a powerful input signal just rocks the entire field. So during your average day, your vertical and horizontal strains are in a tight, stable dance. This strong coupling creates these stable patterns in the brain's energy field, almost like little whirlpools that scientists call attractors. These attractors are your stable thoughts, your beliefs, giving you clear reasoning and a solid sense of self. But then you fall asleep, and that vertical anchor to reality just loosens its grip. Suddenly, the horizontal flow is unleashed. There's nothing holding it back, and so your thoughts start jumping around like crazy from one memory to the next. According to this model, that is exactly what a dream is. And what about our emotions? Well, a strong feeling, fear, love, anger, is like a powerful jolt from a place like the amygdala. It's like a huge wave smashing into the strained field, totally changing its shape. A really intense emotion can even cause the whole field to collapse into a single obsessive thought pattern, which I think we've all experienced. So, we're left with this final, massive question. If this model is even close to being right, if our consciousness isn't a machine, but a vibrant, oscillating field of energy, what does that really imply about who and what we are? It suggests our minds are less like a computer, and maybe a lot more like a piece of complex, beautiful music.